All right. I think. Hello, everybody. I just pressed the button, and you're in the middle of texting. Are you going to tell John and Lisa that we are indeed, we are rolling now. We are live tonight, Thursday night. It has been taking me now, I'm not used to this. So the last couple weeks on Thursdays, I'm like, oh man, what's going on tonight? Because usually there was nothing going on, and now it's like, oh, cool, we got the live stream.
Yeah.
Right? Because usually it was a Wednesday, we were flying home, and now we don't have to do that, so our Wednesdays are all relaxed, and now we have something to look forward to on Thursdays.
I know.
The Thursday night lineup of awesomeness is what I like to call it. So I am glad that you are here and everybody's rolling in. Hope you had a wonderful time on the KG Tropicals live stream. Absolutely love what they're doing there with all the segments and everything. It is like,
fancy.
it's like I'm telling you, it's like a news show.
It
right?
is.
We're going to have to up our game because I feel like we're just not going to cut it, you know. Going to be like a letdown or something. And you're like, oh, what happened to all the segments? We'll come up with our own segments. Uh-oh, we're seeing pickle. Yeah,
Pickle.
The rally pickle.
Hashtag pickle.
And I'm going to tell you something. That pickle
He's
is
fast.
very, very fast.
Gosh.
They race from the left field foul line all the way to like right center field.
And he gives him a huge head start.
Everybody who races, he lets them go into probably left center before the rally pickle starts running, and he's usually overtaking them by center field or just to the other side of right center.
And he has time to like run backwards, you know,
oh my
kind of
gosh,
tease them for a while.
Yeah,
he's funny.
I do want to race the pickle someday.
Look at all these hashtag pickles.
Yep. Someday I'm going to race the pickle just so I can embarrass myself because that would be fun. I think I'd have him for the first 50 feet.
Till you pulled your hamstring.
That's it, yeah.
So,
welcome,
then I go
everybody.
and get you.
So glad you're here. Thanks for hanging out with us tonight because we've got some things to talk about. We have a full docket, a full thing.
Full thingy.
Yeah, I've got all kinds of stuff to talk about when it comes to fish genetics. And
Were these?
No, those are not mine. Those are yours. So I do not require prescription eyeglasses. So thanks for being here. As always, things that we have done over the last week in the land of videos. Last Sunday, I did a video on Primetime Aquatics, the channel you are currently watching, about how to save money in the aquarium hobby in 2025. And so I put together a lot of things that I've talked about in the past and added a few new things as well. So if you haven't checked it out and you like saving money, then that might be a video for you if you haven't already seen it. And then on Monday, on the Tank Talk podcast, we talked about things that fish keepers should know. 9.5 things that fish keepers really need to know about fish keeping. And even if you've been keeping fish for a long time, I promise there's going to be some very good information there for you as well. And then on Tuesday, on the Container Joy, your gardening channel.
Oh, I was like, there's nothing that goes Tuesday.
Yeah, because you were working on it for so long.
Oh my gosh, it took me a long time. Christmas, my beginning owed to the classic Christmas movie, some fun DIYs and stuff.
Yeah, so check it out, Container Joy. That's another channel. On Wednesday on the Small Scape, what did you talk about?
Plants that I find they're my favorite to propagate, including one that would not be probably most people's choice, but I think it's super fun.
Okay.
There you go.
So if you want to see plants to propagate that are super fun.
For nanotanks.
Check it out. Prime Timers, you got your video today. We've talked about the tank right behind us and some changes that have happened. And then, of course, this Sunday, we're going to have a really cool species profile for you. That's going to be for sure. What's so funny?
You have to read Leslie's comment.
I'm just waiting to see if Joanna reads a question Jason already did. Oh, that's coming. You know it's going to happen at least once.
You know
if not twice. It's just what happens.
Have I ever done it twice? There's always a
first. Well, not the same exact question.
Right, but I'm sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Maybe 1.5 times.
Usually once every 25 to 30 minutes. Yep, that's for sure. Where we're going to be, we don't have anywhere where we're going to be until the 8th of December.
Cool.
And that is the Greater Chicago Cichlid Association in Northbrook, Illinois. Costs $5 to get in. You don't have to be a member. If you are anywhere in the Midwest, it is absolutely worth the drive because it is awesome. Lots of vendors, lots of cool stuff. We'll be there. So hope you will too. So that is where we're going to be and what we've done. You got anything you want to add?
It snowed today.
Oh my gosh. So can I just tell you something before we get into the actual topic? Again, if you're just watching this on replay, like, get to the topic. In like 3 minutes, we're going to be there, I promise. I do want to say thank you, Scott, for becoming a prime timer. Really appreciate it. That's awesome. Glad you're here hanging out with us. Snow. I despise snow now because of motorcycle season. The last couple years, motorcycle season has extended into the first week of December, and now it snowed. And it's going to get cold, and it's done, and I got to put the bikes on battery tenders for the rest of the year until... Probably we'll get some nice weather. I mean, usually a couple of days in January or February. As long as there's no snow and no salt, we're good. So, yeah.
It was beautiful. It was so pretty. Made me just want to sit and look out the window.
Yeah.
Although I did have to race and get some of my plants inside from yesterday to today. Others fun. I left just because I'm always doing experiments to see how they're going to do.
I feel like we're not. Hold on, I got to move over or something. I think I'm too far in the center. Seems weird, like I'm like, hi everybody. All right, there we go. That's better. All right, so tonight I want, and I've got lots of visuals for you as well. Tonight I wanted to talk about how through time humans have really messed with fish genetics, and there are so many fish in the hobby. Some of them have been more widely accepted than others, but we have really done a number on fish genetics, and some of it has not led to good outcomes. Some of it has, and some of it is up for debate. And so I wanted to start, I think, with probably the mechanism of altering fish genetics, or at least the physical characteristics, that's been with us the longest. Do you know what that is? You typing things.
Talking to people.
Okay, never mind. She's talking to people. So anyway,
something about old fish?
Yes, that would be line breeding. For decades and decades, human beings have tried, just like they do with every other animal, have tried to breed in qualities that they find desirable. I mean, we do it for dogs. I don't know how many of you know this, but did you know that the overwhelming majority of the dog breeds that we see today have been developed in the last 200 to 250 years? That's a crazy thing to think about, but it's true. And when it comes to fish, that timeline has shrunk considerably because fish keeping really wasn't all that popular until the 1900s, and we have line bred a lot of different types of fish. I think one of the most common, and we just overlook these things. We overlook them because they're so, here's a science word, ubiquitous in the hobby. That means they're everywhere. So if you didn't know what that means, now you got a new word that you can just throw at somebody like, man, I was walking down the street and the snow was ubiquitous today. Yeah.
Pretty proud of yourself?
I am pretty proud of myself. So, and that is the guppy. Oh my gosh. I don't think we really realize just how much the guppy has changed since its natural form, which was decent to look at. I mean, the guppy has some color in its tails. You know, the males have some color, females have a little bit of color. But when we talk about these really long fins, I mean, I have seen guppies with tail fins that are so long they can barely swim.
Oh, that's too bad.
We see a lot of guppies like the Dumbo ears that we're looking at here, relatively healthy, lots of really great color, and it makes it exciting for us in the hobby to see these things, right? To see these line-bred strains and what has happened over time. As human beings are like, wow, that's a really pretty male guppy, and that's a really, really pretty female guppy. And you start to mix them, you start to mate them, and you start to breed these lines and select for fish that have more and more of the color or the fin variety that you want to see. And pretty soon you've got a what is known as a pure strain, that the offspring produce the same look, the same what we call a phenotype, physical characteristics. Over time, they become more true breeding. And that can be pretty cool. And then other people will mix certain guppies together and they will create a new line. And then what we do, inevitably, is we give them a fancy name. So for instance, if they've got a little bit larger fins, well, we might call them Dumbo ear, or, you know, we've got the veil tail angels and things like that. So we give them the fancy names, we give them fancy names for the colors, and then people buy them and they're like, this is awesome. And then they become common over time. And so we've got things like guppies, and I would say maybe the even more common one that you have kept many times,
Common what?
Common fish that has been line bred many, many times. Starts with a B, ends with an etta.
Bettas?
No, the Cory cat. Yeah, the betta.
Good
This
one.
again, a lot of people, we just see all these pretty colors. I'm like, wow, man, nature is amazing. Well, yeah, nature is amazing. But in nature, the wild type bettas are not nearly as colorful as the ones that we have in the hobby, nor do they possess the finish that we often see with especially some of these males. And so we get these awesome strains with these awesome colors, and it can be a lot of fun, right? I don't think is there anybody here who has been keeping fish for a while that has not kept a betta at least one time in some way, shape, or form?
I don't know. Whip, if you're still here, I want to know, have you ever kept a betta?
I mean, almost everybody has kept bettas at least once. And if you haven't, that's okay. If you've resisted to this point, congratulations. But
don't lock eyes.
I'll bet you at some point you're going to want to keep one. So bettas, again, all these strains and these colors that we see, this is all line breeding. Another really good example, one that's not as common as the ones we've been talking about, but one that is really beautiful and is a fish that can fit into a lot of different environments, and that is the electric blue acara. The regular acara is gorgeous, but we can start line breeding these colors to make them a little bit more dramatic, a little bit more eye-catching. This is a relatively peaceful fish. It gets along well with most community fish. They get along well with one another. They're relatively easy to breed. We've got a whole group of them in our fish room right now. At one point we had 70. I think we're down to about 40 now. We'll be bringing them to swaps here pretty soon because they're fairly popular. And they're awesome, right? But that is another example of line breeding. Here's another one. And that is something that we're all familiar with, and that's the angelfish. This is one where I think, unlike the others, with the guppies and especially the bettas, it is clear that the line breeding has probably really helped add a lot of beauty and a lot of interest to those fish. You could make an argument, yes, there are so many cool angelfish types. And then you add in the veil tail angels, which is really awesome. However, I'm wondering if anybody out there thinks the same way I do. The ultimate angel, to me, is still the most magnificent of all angelfish. And I've seen most of them. I've had a lot of them.
Okay.
But the ultimate angel, oh my gosh, that fish is gorgeous. But these are also pretty cool. Right?
I like the koi myself.
The koi, yep, that we are
right
looking
there,
at here.
that
We
was
had
just
big
looking at.
groups of koi angels at one point. And again, what's happening here is people are breeding, crossbreeding angels. They're coming up with new strains all the time. There was somebody at the Greater Chicago Cichlid Association where at some point, I don't know if they still do this, I haven't been to a meeting in a long time, but they were allowing people to submit the breeder award for the breeder awards program, the BAT program, different strains of fish. And people were just killing it on the angelfish. Like, here's a Philippine blue, here's an Altum, here's a koi, and here's a black angel, here's a veil tail, here's standard. And it was getting way out of hand. Like I think there was somebody who bred like 30 different types of angels and they got BAP points. And so I don't know if they kind of discouraged that after that, but angelfish, absolutely, you see the beauty, lots of different colors. Beyond that, you also have shrimp and snails, right? Most of the shrimp that you find in nature, they're going to be more of a brown color. And that's why you'll hear people saying, hey, if you mix all the different colors of shrimp together, a lot of times you just wind up with brownish, tan, or clear shrimp. They say they revert back to wild type. And that's what can happen. And so what people do, shrimp breeders, again, they look at the colors of the shrimp and they start breeding for certain colors and certain characteristics, and you get these really awesome varieties. And I would venture to say, and maybe some of you will disagree, and that's okay, you can write that in the comments over here in the chat. Most people probably wouldn't be all that interested in shrimp if all they were was roughly tan and brown. I still would be, and I would venture to guess a lot of you would be too, because let's face it, man, we're here talking about fish on a Thursday night. Most people would probably appreciate them. However, I still think that because we get such bright, vibrant colors from especially the Neocaridina, like the blues and the pumpkins and the reds and the snowball and the black rose shrimp, that creates a lot of extra interest. And so the bottom line is, when it comes to line breeding, there's a lot of advantages, right? We're making really cool fish. We're getting people interested in the hobby. A lot of them are just as healthy as the wild type, but there are some important exceptions, and that's where things go wrong. So many of you have talked about, hey, especially with guppies and bettas, I can't keep them alive, right? I have these guppies, I have these bettas, and they don't last very long at all. And I can't keep them alive, and it's a big problem. And so a lot of that has to do with the line breeding. I know you've had bettas in the past that they weren't surviving.
Sad, like really sad. Because I was up to 12, or did I have 13? I think maybe the highest was 12, but terrible. They just don't live very long.
Yeah.
Oink. Is that oink? Yeah. Are they ever going to do glow shrimp?
I just asked that question at the last Aquashella. It's got to be coming, and to me that would be one.
That would be insanity.
It would be possible, and we're going to talk about the glowfish obviously in a little while, but yeah, I could see that happening.
Sign me up.
More on that definitely later. The other one. We talk about possible problems with disease and not lasting as long, prone to tumors. I've seen that especially with bettas, with guppies. They're really having a hard time adjusting to different water parameters. I don't think we can have this conversation about line breeding unless we talk about this bad boy, the fancy goldfish.
Yeah.
I don't mind fancy goldfish. I had a group of them at one point in the fish room, 5 of them, and they basically looked like the ones that you're seeing here in this picture. It's not my picture, but they weren't the overly crazy ones that just look like a swimming softball that can't even make it off of the substrate or with the bubbly eyes. And I think we get to a point sometimes where it's kind of like dogs. We produce these bulldogs. They can't even give birth because the heads of the puppies are so large that the females have to always give birth via cesarean section. It's getting the same way with the goldfish. It's like, what is the point? At any time when we are line breeding fish and the fish is no longer comfortable and can no longer survive at a reasonable level, we've gone too far, right? So whether that's guppies, whether that's bettas and their decreased lifespan, or whether it's goldfish and the fact that I've seen goldfish literally that look like a 12-inch softball. I'm like, this thing can't even swim. It just kind of lays there. That is not what a fish is meant to do. First of all, they need to get oxygen through their gills. A lot of times that's done through movement. They get exhausted while they're swimming. You start winding up with fish that are getting scrapes and stuff on their belly if they can't make it off the substrate. They're struggling with any kind of water flow whatsoever. And so again, there's limits to everything. Line breeding, of all the things that we're talking about, is one of the least invasive things that we do to mess with genetics, but it's still something where if you take it too far, there's going to be problems. So, do you have anything else you want to talk about line breeding? Okay.
No.
So the next one, and this one I would say is something that we humans, we love to do it. I wouldn't say everybody loves to do it, but it happens. And some people try to make it happen. And that is creating hybrids.
Yeah.
Right? When you mix 2 different species of fish together and you wind up with something that shares the traits of both fish.
I know what I would mix. If I could mix any 2 fish, it'd be magical, and you would not be able to disagree. Are you ready?
Sure.
What's coming? What's going to be one of them?
A green neon and a Cory cat.
Oh, that would be fun. No, I was thinking a green neon and a checkerboard cichlid. Anyways, that would be
I think
amazing.
you should mix a green neon with a dovi. So you'd have a neon the size, like 18 inches with huge teeth and an attitude. That would be really interesting to me.
Basically like the gremlins of the green neon world.
Exactly, yeah. Absolutely. You get them wet and
Exacting
boom.
revenge.
You get a dovi neon. That would be pretty cool.
Anyways, continue.
So hybrids. First of all, we need to understand something. Hybridization is a natural thing. It does happen in nature. I remember, by the way, the Ohio Cichlid Association this weekend is running the extravaganza. So that's
really,
yeah. And I remember being at that a few years ago and listening to a talk that was done, I think it was by Leif de Mason, and he was talking about how in Lake Tanganyika, I think it was Lake Tanganyika. No, maybe it was Lake Malawi. I don't remember the lake, but he was talking about he's been there a million times. He dives in the lake. He studies the lake, like really studies it. And he was talking about how there are a bunch of natural hybrid zones in the lake where you wind up with two technically different species of fish, and they form not a huge hybrid zone, but there is a hybrid zone there. And so this is something that does and can happen in nature, and it can create some really interesting fish. In fact, again, going back to the Greater Chicago Cichlid Association, there used to be a guy there, and in some ways, he was ostracized a little bit. Not, I mean, it's fish people, and they're all generally very nice, but he was actually purposely hybridizing different types of peacock cichlids. And the idea was he wanted to create some really awesome strains. And to this day, and I know some of you are going to hate me for saying this, I'm sorry, some of the most beautiful cichlids I have ever seen were hybrids that he created, and I don't think he was able to get them to breed true so that they would constantly produce these fish that I'm talking about. But oh my gosh, the colors. He would get fish that had almost like an albino underlying body, so it's white peacock cichlids. So imagine this. You have a white fish, and then there would be a splash of blue all throughout the under part of the body, but then there would also be yellow, like just on top of that, and then some red. It literally looked like, I know we say this all the time, but these fish to me looked like saltwater fish. They were so beautiful. And I asked him, like, dude, can you get these things to breed true yet? He's like, I'm trying, I can't. The number of fry that they spit out, maybe it's 1 in 35 or 40. And then when I mate those, they all revert back to an OB, which is orange blotch. It's a name that we use for like the speckled types of cichlids. So it can be really interesting to see some of these hybrids. They can be very, very beautiful fish. Hybrids, generally speaking, for the most part, tend to be fairly healthy fish. So especially in the cichlid world, I'll give you an example here in this video. The OBs that you're seeing here. So I'm going to pause this for a second. This was at Aquashella a couple years ago. And so the fish that you're seeing here, the ones with all the spots, those are all hybrid. All right, those are different types of peacocks that mate, and then they produce these offspring. We used to do this in our fish room all the time. They were some of our most popular fish that we used to bring to swaps. We had Red Empress, and we had Dragon Bloods, which themselves are a hybrid, and they would give us some of the most beautiful OB fish,
yeah.
These blotchy ones. Not all fish that look like this are hybrids, though. There are some Mbuna that naturally look like that, so I don't want to just make a blanket statement that, if you see those spots, it's a hybrid. That's not true. Some Mbuna, they actually have those spots like you're seeing here. So, but these are some of the most popular in the cichlid world, and most well accepted, right? Most widely accepted are these OB that you're seeing here. Absolutely gorgeous fish, and I've kept them a number of times. By the way, if you love those, a lot of times it's easier to keep those with Mbuna than it is with peacocks, because when you put them in with peacocks, they tend to be, very bossy, let's say. And I know a number of people, when they originally created their OB lines, were actually mixing Mbuna with peacocks to get those OB strains. So they're absolutely beautiful fish. If we go to the not so extreme, we can do things like mixing are fairly close to full grown.
You're going to see somewhere around 2 to 3 inches for most platies. So there's actually a couple different types here. We've got our standard platies, but you're going to see some high-fin variatus platies as well. Those tend to be a little bit skinnier and a little bit smaller in my experience. But the coloration is everywhere. You've got blue and green. You can see here yellow. That's one of my favorites, and I don't have in this tank, is the red wag platy, which I really like.
Where hybridization,
one of the reasons why I like them so much is both the males and the females show amazing color.
I'll bet some of you
in terms of their size, the females tend to be a little bit larger, a little bit rounder.
One of them is the flower horn. Not a fish I've ever kept, not a fish that I currently want to keep, but I understand why people do. One, because that fish is beautiful, right? The coloration is beautiful. I know a lot of people, maybe that nuchal hump, the big bump on the head, it's like, hey, you know what? Not the greatest. So, Sound Blast. Wait, was there 2 me's on the last one? Did I forget to turn it down? Sorry, guys. On that last video, I must have not muted the actual video. That was probably really annoying. So anyway,
there's 2 of you.
There, I guess so. So I forgot to cut that bad boy out and mute the actual video. Sorry for
one Jason is enough. Oh my gosh, yes.
I know. When I have multiple me's in my head, it is a real mess.
That's how I live.
Yep. So anyway, the flower horn, this is a hybrid that it can have some problems, right? I've seen these fish with a nuchal hump so large they can barely swim. And I've seen these fish with nuchal humps so large, and then they wind up with, if there's any water quality issues, they wind up with hole in the head. It can be a real big problem. The other one, and this one, not as many problems in my opinion, in terms of health, necessarily, and that's the blood parrot.
There we go.
You actually kind of like them.
Remember the first one? Oh, I remember. That was Happy.
Yep.
We named him Happy.
We had him in a 75
so
gallon.
Sweet when he died.
So that was an interesting fish because we had him in a 75.
Mm-hmm.
And then I wanted to move him to the 150. And remember, there was other cichlids in there. There were small African cichlids in there, peacocks, and they bullied him a little bit. So he hid. He hid in a little plastic castle, and his little face was sticking out. I was heartbroken. So back in the 75, he went because I'm like, oh, no. We can't have that fish getting bullied. And here's the issue. So the blood parrot, due to its hybridization, it's a mix of a Severum and, somebody help me out, green terror or red terror? One of the terrors. So, but what happens is you can see the mouth, it's stuck open.
Yeah.
And because of that, they eat just fine. People always wonder, oh my gosh, these fish can't eat. No, that's not true because they have pharyngeal jaws. There's a second set of jaws that a lot of fish have. And these fish in particular have that. So they can chew their food with the jaws that are in their throat. The problem is they're cichlids, and they can tend to be just like any other cichlid, like, hey, I'm gonna run the tank. And for a while, because they're big and they're just like bulls in a china shop, man. They remember how crazy he was. They swim all over the place. They knock stuff over. They're goofy. They're generally good natured, but they'll chase other fish around. The interesting thing is when other fish realize, wait a minute, this big bubbly guy that's chasing me around can't actually do any damage. And when the tables turn, I promise you're going to have an issue because these fish cannot defend themselves. And so like what happened to us is once the tables turn, they just hide or they get beaten down. So that can be an issue. But ours actually lived a pretty long time. I mean, so it wasn't necessarily any issues with longevity or anything like that. But I know a lot of people they take issue with the fact that their mouth is kind of stuck the way it is. They will not produce fertile offspring. So if two blood parrots mate, they have what we call pre-zygotic barriers. There's not going to be any fertilized egg that hatches, but really cool fish. Now, so we've talked about the hybrids. The next thing on the list, and this is the one I think most of you were thinking about when I talked about genetically modifying fish, because I saw a lot of comments early on, and that is the glowfish. Mm-hmm. Oh, the glowfish. People have opinions about the glowfish, and yes. I get it. I totally get it. It started out way, way, way back in the day where they made glowdanios and what would be glow skirt tetras.
Yeah.
So two very common fish. Mm-hmm. Two fish that were already being used in the scientific community as model organisms. So it was like the perfect type of fish, at least for them, because they already knew so much about their development and genetics. It just made sense. If we were going to genetically alter a fish, why not do it with something that we work with all the time? Now, to be clear, a lot of people ask this. Glowfish are not dyed, all right? They're not injecting a dye into the Glowfish brand. It is a genetic insertion that allows them to express that pigment. All right, so just to be clear there, so we're not putting needles in fish. Now there are some fish where they do that, like the blood parrots that I showed you, those ones that the gumball parrot where they were like blue and yellow and green, and then that dye wears off. They were basically that one they were injecting dye. That's horrible. That's not genetic manipulation at that point. That's just animal cruelty. So in my opinion. But the glowfish, on the other hand, this is a genetic insertion. From our personal experience, from talking to many, 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 many people who have had them in the past, and you guys, if you've kept them before, feel free to chime in, good or bad, right? We want to hear your opinion as well. I have not noticed, at least with the glowdanios and the glow skirt tetras, any difference in life expectancy
No? Okay.
Nothing in terms of activity level, the way they eat. So they will breed as well, although be very careful. It's actually illegal to breed those fish. There is a patent on that glow gene, so just be careful there. But those particular fish have lived just as long. Now, recently, not recently, but in the last 5 years, they had the glow rainbow shark, right? Those came out. More recently, I think the two big ones that have been really floating around, and I couldn't find my video, and I just did it. I couldn't find the video on it, and that was the glow angelfish and the glow cory cat. I can make an argument for the glow cory, I guess, in one sense that it fits in well with the glow danios and the glow skirt tetras. You can keep them all together. I guess you can keep them with glow angels as well. And the fact that these are fish that are generally easy to keep and don't require a really huge tank. They are directed towards kids for the most part, right? I mean, it's fine if you're an adult and you like them. I'm not saying that, this is a childish thing, not at all. I'm just saying the reason why glowfish exist is to try to get not just kids, but people who are not in the hobby to appreciate the hobby. Like, oh, that's crazy! Look at that with all the, the brightly colored stuff. But overall, it's something that appeals to children probably more than it appeals to adults as a whole, right? Again, if you're an adult and you like them, that's totally cool. Now, there's a couple that I don't understand, right? The glow angel, I don't understand it as much, only because, and we talked about this. In fact, we did a Tank Talk podcast on this subject. If you want more information, go to the Tank Talk podcast. We did one on genetically modifying organisms and glowfish in general. And one of the things I mentioned there, and as we talked about it, as John and I talked about it, we started to struggle with the concept of a glow angel, because typically glowfish are going to be in smaller tanks. They're going to be easy to care for. They're often beginner fish. So you could make an argument, okay, glow danio checks those boxes. The glow skirt tetra, you can't put them in a 10 gallon, but you could do a 20 or 29. Not ideal, but it can be done. Glow cory cats, okay, that fits that mold as well. However, the glow angel doesn't fit that, because you need, in my opinion, bare minimum of a 40 breeder, ideally a 55 gallon or larger. That throws a lot of that whole beginner thing out the window, right? So, and now you're dealing with a cichlid, and now you're dealing with fish. Like when I saw the glow angels that were, by the way, they were pretty much full grown. I mean, they were big fish. So it's telling me that those fish are living a basically full and complete life, and they were acting just the way angels do. And they were sparring with one another in the glow tank and at Aquashella, and they were like, doing the little flicker and locking mouths and stuff like that. So I'm like, ooh boy, okay. So these are acting like angels, and a lot of who have kept angels in the past, even in a 55 gallon, one is safe. The minute you start adding additionals, you might have problems, and the glow angels are going to be no different than that. At least that's the way it appears to me. The other one, this is one I'm not a big fan of. Like the rest of them, if you like them, that's fine. I mean, again, genetically, they're adding some stuff to the genome. They tend to be, at least in my experience, relatively just as healthy. If you don't like the way they look, you don't like the message they send, totally understandable. But there is one that you have had that we had a really bad experience with. So that's this bad boy here.
Slimer. His name is Slimer.
And that is, so this was a glow betta. Now, we talked about this last week or the week before, and the glow betta, have you noticed them? Have you actually looked for them? Has anybody seen them at their local Petco or PetSmart where they used to be so popular? Because I haven't, but I don't go there a lot, but I just haven't heard much about them. And the reason why I think that they have been a bit of a problem, hopefully this crazy fish will swim out a little bit. It's right above our heads in the video there. But these fish, there's a couple issues I have with them. Let me pause that video there. And so the couple issues I have is, one, I don't have to tell you guys, bettas are already full of color and extremely beautiful fish. So why add the glow gene to a fish that is already highly coveted for its beauty?
Yeah.
2, what was the problem with this particular one right here?
He went blind.
And we had heard from a couple of friends that had also gotten glow bettas that it appeared as though their glow betta had gone blind. And sure enough, after about 3 months, ours did as well. So again, it's an anecdotal report, but when we experienced it, and then 2 people who we know had them as well, they're like, yeah, they went blind for them. I just don't know. There's obviously some issue where they did the gene insertion and it's causing other problems downstream with other genes that are involved in eyesight. I don't know if that is a pigment. I don't know what's going on, but the Glow Betta to me was one that I didn't understand that one as much. I don't know what their plans are. I don't know anybody at the Glowfish company. I don't know what their plans are for any additional fish, but I mean, I told John this when we did this video. There's one that I think would be funny as heck. The Glow Oscar. I don't know why.
That'd be really big.
Right? And like you make a green one and a yellow one and like a fluorescent red one. I am surprised. Like, we haven't seen Glow Oscars, and I'm also surprised what you mentioned earlier, and that is that we haven't seen any Glow Shrimp.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if the gene that they use can be expressed with an organism that has an exoskeleton.
Right.
So I'm not sure, how that works. I don't know enough about the gene and where it's inserted and how it's expressed.
Like snails. A lot of people said, how about glow snails?
Glow snails, that would be interesting, but it would only be their body. Like, I know that the shells themselves would not be, they wouldn't be able to glow, right? And I know that would be the case with the shrimp as well. The exoskeleton would not glow, and the problem with the shrimp, I think, would be that the whole body, for the most part, is covered by exoskeleton, so I'm not sure anything would actually glow, but the shrimp, the body of it, the foot of the snail, I mean, would glow.
I'm actually surprised that they haven't done painted shells for snails. You know how they always used to, I don't know if they still do this, for the hermit crabs, used to get painted hermit crab shells?
Yeah.
I'm surprised they haven't done.
Yeah, Glow Guppies, Mandarin. I have never seen a Glow Guppy. To the best of my knowledge, they don't exist. That would be another real no-brainer to me if they were going to go in a direction. Everybody keeps guppies anyway. But then again, you've got the same problem as you do with the betta, and that problem is you've already got a really beautiful fish with tons of different color varieties with awesome finnage. So I don't know, but it would be smaller and a little bit easier to understand why that would happen. So
wait, Oink said, how about Glow Chaka Chaka Cat? Chuck.
Oh my gosh,
chucks.
a glow chuck?
They would be called glow chucks, yeah.
Yeah, man.
Can you imagine? That's just a.
This is. Guppy again. I vote against Glow Guppies. Duly noted. Duly noted. So, a couple more minutes on this, then we'll get to your questions here. I'm thinking more about the future, right? If you're going to mess with fish genetics, why hasn't anybody done it in such a way that actually benefits the fish and the industry in a major way, besides just trying to attract kids to the hobby?
Because it's all about money.
But this could be about money as well. But it would also provide an additional benefit for everybody, and that is, and this is a lot harder to do than it is to say, but I wonder if any companies have looked at genetically engineering fish that are ick resistant. Ick is the number one killer in our hobby, besides water quality issues. I'm talking about parasite. Ick is probably the number one killer for the hobbyist, right? Not necessarily throughout this entire supply chain, but my gosh, could you imagine having a genetically engineered fish that could resist ick and make it so that you don't have to use all those medications, so we're not worried about the resistance that comes along with it, or fish that are resistant to certain types of bacterial infections. What if you could genetically engineer fish where you alter their metabolism so that they could survive and thrive in cooler temperatures? And so now we greatly expand the number of fish that we can keep in unheated tanks, and that would save energy, it would reduce complication when it comes to keeping fish. Or along the same lines, what if we could keep fish that had a wider range tolerance for pH and water hardness, right? Again, this is not just a gene that you're inserting. Like, okay, I found the water hardness gene, or I found the pH gene. Boom, let's just fix that. There's something that we talk about all the time in biology and in microbiology. It's this mechanism called the CRISPR system. You ever want to go down the path of just being a total molecular biology nerd? This CRISPR system is actually a bacterial defense mechanism against viruses. Did you know that bacteria get infected by viruses. They can catch a little cold. Achoo.
Really?
Yeah. Sometimes if you hear a sneeze and it's not actually you,
bacteria?
it's your microbes. Just go, achoo.
Huh, who knew?
Yep, Evan, CRISPR-Cas9. And so I'm surprised that nobody has used this CRISPR-Cas9 system to alter genetic information, maybe to allow fish to secrete a thicker mucus coat, or maybe, just maybe, produce antibodies that are specific for the most prevalent strains of ick or the most prevalent strains of bacterial infections. So it's kind of an interesting thought. The one thing that I am concerned about is whenever you genetically modify fish, if they get out into nature, what is that actually going to do? Right. So we already have problems, especially in the southern part of the United States, certainly in Central and South America, where you've got invasive fish that are not supposed to be where they're at. Could you imagine what would happen is if you had genetically modified organisms, like all of a sudden you've got Glowfish Lake or something like that? I mean, that's not a good thing. I mean, we've all probably seen videos of like the common pleco that's overrun river systems in Arizona and in Florida. They destroy the banks of the rivers because they burrow. It's a very serious issue. So, certainly not a big fan of seeing that stuff get out into nature by any stretch of the imagination. So,
just so you know, Lee, I wasn't pretending. Just zoning out. I was in a happy place. So Lee says, I just lost it. Look at Joanna pretending she is interested in CRISPR engineering.
Yeah, I think everybody is. Deep down, everybody is.
Don't understand a word.
CRISPR enthusiast at heart. I did see some things come through.
But I do have to share these suggestions
one
for
second.
glows.
Yeah. Nicholas, thank you so much for the super chat. Wanted to share bred neons in my tank, TDS 168, pH of 8. That's awesome. Yeah, they will breed that high. I'm glad that you were able to do that. I know a lot of people say that the water parameters absolutely have to be on the acidic side and really soft water. It works better when it's that way, but I have seen tetras breed in harder water similar to ours many times. Brian, thank you so much for being a prime timer the last 3 months. What is the brand and color of substrate in your 125 nano tank? You guys rock. Thanks for all the great info.
Isn't it amazing?
That is red flint. Mm-hmm. So red flint sand, I really love it. It is going to be going in when I redo the 75 gallon. It's over by Joanna over there. That is the substrate I'm going to be using in that tank as well. It's in both of our both of the 125s back here. It's really a really cool, natural looking substrate, and I quite enjoy it.
And it's got a lot of variation in color if you look up close to it. It's really cool.
Absolutely, it does. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Are you ready?
I am ready.
These are really cool. These are cool suggestions. Okay, for glow, ... All right, from R. Morgan says shell dwellers. How cool would that be? Because they're like glowing up underneath the shells and stuff. Wouldn't that be awesome?
Yeah, that would be interesting.
That would be totally cool. Okay, and then Krypton Cowboy says African dwarf frogs. That would be really fun.
Ooh, that would be interesting. Yeah.
And then Nicholas, trumpet snails.
Oh my gosh, your whole tank your whole substrate would just be glowing. You might as well just put the glowing rocks in there at that point, right? Holy cow.
Good job.
Yep, glow trumpet snails. Job. That would make, how about glow duckweed? I mean, if we're going to do something, we're like, the duckweed just absorbs visible light and then it just reflects it back as like glow something. And so then your whole tank, instead of having like a green tinge to it,
everyone would
be like pink or yellow or red.
I need some duckweed. Everybody would want duckweed. They'd be like, I need some.
Yep. It would be the new thing.
Yep.
All right. So yeah, now's the time. If you've got questions, we will try to answer said questions. Let me see here. I saw a few. Sharpie says, starting a 75 gallon planted a community aquarium. Sharpie. What is the filtration you recommend? Well, there's a lot of different ways you can go. So let me do a quick little summary. If you had this 75 in with a whole bunch of other aquariums, you can do what we did on the other side. There's sponge filters in there. Doesn't look the best of all the options I'm going to talk about. Nope. And it's going to do the worst job of mechanical filtration of just about any single filter you can pick. It's just the reality. Again, we've got 30 tanks on the other side, and we've got probably in those 30 tanks 55 sponge filters running. So if you want to not look at sponge filters, which I don't blame you, there's a number of ways you can go. for a 75 gallon, I would, if I was doing hang on back filters, I might go with 2 Seachem 75s. You could do 2, what would that be? AquaClear 70s. And I'm always doing 2 because it's a 4-foot tank. So I'd have 1 on each side. You could also run with 2 Marineland Pro 375s. I like the Tidal filters and the Marineland Pros because they have that internal filter. It makes them really quiet and self-priming. But you can't necessarily argue with the reliability, long-term reliability of the AquaClears either. But it doesn't have that internal motor, so I'm not as enthused about it sometimes because of that. If you want to go ultra quiet and you don't want to run 2 hang-on backs, you can go a canister filter. I can tell you on both the 75s that we have in here, we're running the Fluval 407s, and I absolutely love the filter. I don't feel like I need anything more. I've got Mbuna in the tank by me, and there's a whole mess load of Lake Tanganyika cichlids in Joanna's side, and those Fluval 407s are keeping up just wonderfully, super quiet, great flow, awesome choice. You've also got the Cichlids, the sharks, right? The larger sharks. Those are internal canisters, so you're going to see them like you would a sponge filter in a sense, but they're not as displeasing, I think, to the eye as a sponge filter. It gives you a lot of flow, a lot of mechanical filtration. So it just depends on what you're looking for. Me personally, and over here, I had to run canisters because I wanted to be really quiet. If I'm just running a tank in a living room, I might just choose a 2 hang-on backs because they're going to be really easy to maintain.
Hey, Sharpie, what are you guys putting in there? I'm curious.
That's a good question too, because if it's, and not just for that, but if it is a high bio load, then the canister filter might be the way to go, just because you're going to get the best mechanical filtration from the canister filter. Wet Sleeves, thank you. Thank you very much for donating 5 new Primetimer memberships to the Primetime people. Really appreciate it. Thank you very much. I hope everybody else does too.
Yeah.
All right, let me see here. Mike says, is there a blue abuse out there that you think is actually blue, not purple?
There was a April Fool's Day thing that came out by, who was it? One of the aquatic plant sellers that it was like the Smurf Anubius or Smurf Buse or something, and it was like bright blue.
Was it Smurfalicious?
And I totally was like, no way. And then it was just an old post. I said, oh, they got me.
That would have been really Smurfy.
It was totally Smurfy, yeah.
Wow.
I love the Smurfs. I would get up every Saturday morning, 8 a.m. I was there. Cool. I was there.
Very nice. Like Missoula said, glow plants might be interesting. Yeah, that would be.
Somebody even said that they already have in the terrestrial world. They have glow petunias.
So that's interesting because
that's
this CRISPR-Cas9 system that we're talking about. They use that with petunias because it's a model organism. Yeah.
Really?
And they use
That's why they probably mess with them so much. They even have like starlight or like they almost look like stars on a dark, starry night sort of ones too.
And they use RNAi with the petunias as well to make them really purpley. Taylor says, have you kept polar blue parrot cichlids? I have not. I really think they're pretty cool, though. I think that they are a very attractive fish, but I have not been able to keep them. One of my friends who lives across the world, she's got a group that I think she was breeding, and they looked really, really pretty. Sylvie says, what is the best way to split a tank? Use a saw, man. Just bzzz. Okay, maybe that. If you want it to still hold water, planting a 40 long for schooling fish in a 3-foot side and a betta in the remaining 1 foot, unless they get along fine, which I doubt. So I'd rather be prepared. 40 long. So my first inclination was to recommend Life with Pets because they have tank dividers. Mm-hmm. Now, I doubt that they sell a tank divider that is specifically for a 40 long because that's an odd size, right? Because now you're 12 and a half inches by, what is that, like 13 or so inches? And I don't think that there is a standard size tank that has those dimensions. But my guess is if you reach out to them, they could maybe, I can't speak for them, I don't know this for sure, but it might be worth reaching out and saying, hey, can you make me one of your tank dividers? Because they're pretty good. They have it pretty much dialed in right now in terms of the number of holes, the size of the holes, to get the water flowing, to make sure that there isn't going to be a whole bunch of dead spots in your aquarium.
Zen Ginger wants to know what I think, glow anableps or mud skippers, any of the goofy-eyed critters, yes or no? I say yeah. You know what? Because I would take them in any color.
You're going to
Can
glow
you
them all,
imagine
huh?
like glow anableps? Dun, 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 dun.
That would be
I'd be
very
like, come
interesting.
here, little babies.
I'm being blinded by the fish's eyes.
Oh, my
Yep.
goodness, they're so cute.
Aquavelvet says, I'm probably going to switch to sponge filters. So what I generally say is for people who are interested or kind of thinking about sponge filters, usually there's some things to consider, right? For me, sponge filters are 100% about economy, right? The fact that with 30 aquariums over there, I don't have the power. Even if I ran more from the circuit over here and ran it over there, I don't know if I would still get enough power in here. And even if I could, I can't imagine what the electric bill would be every month if I had 30 hang-on backs or 30 things I had to plug in to filter those tanks. So for me, it's 100% about the making sure that I have the power and I'm not spending $1 million a month on electric bills to power and filter all those tanks. Now, that being said, where does that become economical? Well, it depends on a couple things. Thing number one, where are all your fish tanks? If they are all in the same room, like I've got 30 fish tanks in that one room over there, and if you've been watching the channel for a while, I had another 40-something, 45 over here at one point, and I had the air system was throughout this side and the other side. Well, yeah, I ran one giant linear piston air pump, and I filtered every single tank. Really economical. So that can work out great. You will have to adjust to, okay, what do my tanks look like? Because now you've got sponge filters in the tank. They're going to be visible. That's not for everybody. I don't mind it. I don't mind them on the other side. You just kind of, I don't know, after a while, you just mentally block them out. So it's not something I even see anymore necessarily that I even care about. There's going to be more noise. Okay, so I'm sure it's coming through a little bit through our audio, but we can't shut all those down. We have way too many fish in some of those tanks to shut that stuff down for 90 minutes. But the bubbling noise, there's ways around that. You can put in the elbows and stuff like that. Air stones will kind of break it up a little bit, but you're going to hear some more noise. And you're going to lose, always, you're going to lose some amount of mechanical filtration. Those sponge filters, they serve a purpose, especially if you're breeding fish. That can be a really good idea. But the problem is going to be, you're going to have to get used to the fact that, hey, these sponge filters they don't have the suction, even when you do everything perfectly, to get the vast majority of the stuff that's floating around in the water to get it out. And so when we have tanks on the other side that sometimes are heavily stocked because we bring in a bunch of fish for quarantine, that's where those Shark Pros come in really handy. I can throw one in there, it sucks up everything. Fish are stirring up stuff off the substrate, it's sucking that up as well. For some of our more heavily stocked tanks, I still have a hang-on back filter on some of those aquariums to cut down on that. But on the other side, if I've got something plugged in filtration-wise that's in a tank, it's just to keep the water a little bit more clear. But overall, if you've got the right reasons and your fish room is growing, it makes a lot of sense, because at some point you just run out of power. What say you?
Taylor says, what size tank would you use for a firemouth cichlid?
What size tank would I use for a firemouth? I would probably say a 40 breeder or larger, just because they do get to around 4 inches or so. They can be territorial. Now, if it's the only fish in the entire tank, could you put it in a 29? Yeah, you probably could. But if you're going to have any other fish in the aquarium, a 40 breeder is probably a really good bet.
Yeah, Danny says, I love the Shark Pros. Me too.
Yeah. They are a workhorse right now because, like I said, we have a few of them just floating around. We got the larger Sharks. We got the Shark Pro Nanos, and we got the larger ones too. And it's just get stuff out of the tank so that we can, make it look a little nicer. So, because the sponge filters are in there. Oh, one other thing too, with the sponge filters, for those of you who are thinking about ever changing over, the sponge itself, there can be different pore sizes. I prefer the fine pore sponges because it traps more stuff and it doesn't release as much stuff back into the tank when you start to pull them out and maintain them, as we do every single week. So for me, the coarse sponge, it's fine for biological filtration, but once whatever it traps, unless you do the whole bag method and all that stuff, which to me would be a pain with all the sponge filters we have in here, it's going to dump most of what it's caught back into the tank. It also traps a lot of sand, and so that's why we use the fine pour. Works a little better for us.
Stocking. Danny asks, the 20-gallon looks awesome with the 6 black tetras, 6 cardinal tetras, 6 neon greens. Ooh, will it be too much to add 3 scarlet, I'm assuming Battis? Not Battis.
No.
And 4 Coolie Loaches.
No, I think that's probably a fully stocked tank at that point. So the scarlet Battis are going to stay small. They're going to stay near the bottom. The Coolie Loaches are more or less a bottom type of fish as well. So you've got your schooling, your mid-water stuff is on point, and then you're adding a little bit of interest at the bottom. And yeah, I think that could certainly work. What would you recommend for a 10-gallon betta tank? Something with adjustable flow. Whatever you get must have adjustable flow. That's going to be easiest to accomplish with a hang-on back filter. It sounds like a lot, but the Tidal 35 is a really nice filter for that size tank because that flow is highly adjustable, and you don't need to worry about a long intake tube, so it really works out pretty well there. I don't know if the Marineland Pro, I guess that'd be like the 125, if that has an adjustable flow, but if that does, that would work as well. But you don't want your bettas blowing around, and unfortunately, that's the one downside to a lot of the internal canister filters. You can't turn the flow down. For a lot of you who have kept the all-in-one tanks, great idea. I hate that they market those for people who are exclusively trying to keep bettas, because with almost every single one, what are you doing? With all the all-in-one tanks, if you're putting a betta in there.
Well, you always have to like put sponge over the
return.
The
filter return.
But I've come up with, you just wind up getting a whole bunch of tricks.
Yeah.
And it's really dumb because they should know better. I mean, seriously, they should know better.
On those tanks, it's the one thing I wish, and if you're anybody who's manufacturing the all-in-one aquariums, especially you, Fluval, because you're on point with those things for the most part, the pumps need to have an adjustable flow, or at least some way to redirect some of the flow back into the back compartment so that it's not blowing all the fish around, so that people who are, especially on the smaller tanks, if a company is doing an all-in-one, where the filter is just, so when I say all-in-one, it's like the aquariums we used to have in the back of our YouTube studio. Little 8-gallon, it's got the wall, and then it's got the little return sticking out, and it kind of just goes in the back of the tank and then shoots back out. Those pumps are universally way too strong for almost all bettas. And so if you're doing anything from a 2-gallon up to a 10-gallon all-in-one, that should just be part of the thing. Make it an adjustable flow so that people can actually keep fish that are meant to be in those tanks from blowing around, because a lot of those small fish don't like all that flow anyway, so that can be a little rough to deal with. Fin Freaks, thank you so much for becoming a prime timer. Really appreciate it.
Fun name. All right, Tank Commander. It seems like most fish look better on dark substrates. Which species show better color on light substrates?
Great question.
There was one that you just brought up, I know, on the show.
Yeah, that I brought
up? Quad. Yeah, I think it was at the Quad. Yeah. We had two. We were selling 2 different kinds, and you said one looks better on dark, one looks better on light. Remember?
Yes. So I agree with you that the vast majority of fish that are tropical fish that are sold tend to look better dark substrate, dark background. It just tends to show their color much nicer. Fish that look better on a lighter substrate, well, the ones that, I'll give you a good example. We've got Nanochromis transvestitis. That is a really cool fish we just put back here.
Oh, I love
dark substrate all day. However, we've got Nanochara anomala. That is a light substrate. So, but those are somewhat rare. So popular fish, most of your Lake Tanganyikans, in fact, I would venture to say almost all Lake Tanganyikan cichlids look better on a lighter substrate. They just show colors. The only exception that I personally think that look better of the Lake Tanganyikans are the Similis shell dweller, because their bars show nicer. But everything else, to me, lighter substrate.
Although now green neons look better on darker substrate. However, they look really fun on light. Remember when we had them on that really light substrate?
Yeah.
They're almost like little gems. A little bit more like diamondy or something.
And the other thing too is don't make the mistake that I've made in the past where we got in a whole bunch of black rose Neocaridina and then we threw them in a 10-gallon quarantine tank with black gravel. Couldn't see them.
Couldn't find them. Yeah.
Straight up couldn't see them. Same thing with our Blue Dream.
Yeah.
Right? We have our Blue Dream on I think it's still pool filter. One of the last tanks we have in the fisherman that still has pool filter sand, but it's light. Perfect. If I were to put those on a dark substrate, you just wouldn't see them, right? So. But yeah, most fish, they start to feel more comfortable, show more color with the darker. It's not just the substrate, it's also the backdrop as well. That really helps.
Do you want to know what Sharpie's putting in their take?
Sure.
Of course, a lot of green neons. What? Smaller rainbows, fun. Yellow hyphen platies, fun. Cherry shrimp, and of course, cories. You got to have a little pile of cories.
Yeah.
That's a fun tank. Rock on.
Good question. Fins Gone Wild. Do you still recommend the Forza 5 to 15? It's a decent filter. So the nice thing about that Forza 5 to 15, it's not a super popular. It's a little tiny hang-on back filter. I mean, it's probably one of the smallest ones on the market. And as the name implies, it is meant to filter a tank between 5 and 15 gallons. I think that's way overshooting it. I would say that filter is good for about a 2-gallon to maybe a 6 or 7-gallon tank max. I think once you get to 10 gallons and above, that filter struggles quite a bit. It's a small filter. It doesn't have a lot of space. So it comes with a little sponge, at least it used to. I don't know if it still does. You can pack a little bit of filter floss in there. The flow is not all that strong, and that's why I really think if you've got a 5-gallon and you really want to hang on back filter, that is something to consider. I would also say keep it well maintained, because if that impeller gets clogged up, then it starts to stop periodically. But yeah, it would still be a filter where if we put together a 5-gallon tank and we're like, oh, I need a filter, run out, that's probably still one that I would grab. But it's tiny. I don't think it's appropriate for anything 10 gallons and above. Tree says, I never understood why all those all-in-one nano aquariums have such strong flow, because they just, to save money, they're throwing the same pump on multiple size tanks.
So
and it's
dumb.
like, man, I don't know what it would cost. And again, maybe what we're asking for is just way too crazy, but if adjustable flow, it doesn't seem like just putting a knob in there and just having a redirect or something would cost a lot of money. But I think it's something that would be a huge win for whoever does it first. Scrolling around. Shirley, how about a glow pleco? Like a big pleco? A glow zebra pleco.
Yes, right.
That'd be crazy.
No, the what was the one that we had down there with the spots? Almost looks like a Starry Night, sort of.
Spots provolone? Oh my gosh, do we still have that fish? You know what that is. So here's the problem. And some of you who have gotten these expensive plecos, you know what I'm about to talk about here. That is they hide. So fun fact, I bet you didn't know this. In the top 125 Vieja tank, there is a blue phantom pleco in there. And it's gotten, you were thinking of Spots provolone.
What kind of spots?
Spots was a...
Sure.
Yes. Spots provolone used to be in the 75 over here, and he would come out all the time. Then I put him over there. No, I think Spots provolone died. I don't remember what that was. Man, I can't remember for the life of me.
But that would be cool. The spots. The spots glowed.
But back to my story. We have 2 blue phantom plecos still in the fish room. One's in that top 75, and the other one's in that massive guppy grass 40-gallon breeder where the bitterlings are.
Really?
I saw him too.
Really?
Yep. But the blue phantom pleco in the top 125, he actually comes out around feeding time. It's really actually very rewarding.
That's cool.
Super Barbecue says, and baby shrimp get caught in the coarse. Yeah, that's true too. Yeah, those coarse sponge filters, I've had that happen as well, where we bring ours to the sink and we're squeezing it out, trying to get the stuff out, and all of a sudden you got little shrimplets. You're like, oh, that did not just happen. They're running down the drain. Yep. Not cool.
Oink. She says she's back now. There was a tree limb that fell on her cart, but she says that could have been really bad. That tree limb just missed my 250cc. Oh my gosh. Phew. Is it really windy by you?
Maybe they're getting the same weather.
New York, yeah, we had
The
a
snow,
lot of wind,
yeah.
and a lot of wind yesterday when I was taking in plants. I almost like blew away.
Matt says, would the Shark Pro be okay to breed Hillstream loaches? So a lot of people ask about those Shark Pros, like whether it's the nanos or the full size. What I have found is the way that those filters work, and to be clear, I haven't put those in any tanks that I'm trying. Of course, I don't really breed that much anymore, but I get a lot of questions about for the Shark Pro nanos, are they shrimp safe? I think they would be, and here's why. The compartments that they have, the slots are definitely big enough where they could suck in juvenile shrimp. However, right on the other side of that plastic is they have the sponges, and they're locked in place, right? So they slide in to all the edges for each compartment. So as long as those are in place, I think, generally speaking, they would be shrimp safe and probably fry safe as well. But again, I haven't tried it, so I can't be like, oh yeah, for sure, it's okay. Do you have something you want to share?
No.
Wow. That's something.
Aren't you lucky?
I am lucky. Hold on, I'm scrolling. I saw Leslie says those air pumps can be expensive. They can be. Yeah, the initial setup, if you're looking to do an all-in-one, like back to our sponge filter conversation, if you're looking to do like what we did here, and we've bought 3 different central air systems. So 2 things. One, I highly recommend, we're not sponsored, we have no association with them whatsoever, but gemco.com. So it's JEHMCO. Gemco.com, and they specialize in basically outfitting people who have fish rooms. So they have, in my opinion, the highest quality linear air piston pumps on the market. So for those of you who are ever thinking about, hey, I'd really like to do a whole fish room and a bunch of sponge filters, linear air piston pumps are the best because they're the quietest, they tend to last the longest, they generate the least amount of heat. So that's what we've used. And they've got this LPH line, and I don't remember what we started with. I did a video back when we first got the fish room, not first got the fish room up and running, but first started on YouTube. And as the fish room grew, I went bigger and bigger and bigger. And then we shrunk the fish room down. So luckily I still had those pumps, so I put the smaller ones back in. The other ones are just backups. But those things are awesome for a fish room that's similar to ours. Like, so over there, 30 tanks, maybe 55 sponge filters, you can still get a pump for less than $200. And when you put that in perspective with like a nice canister filter, you're in the same ballpark, only I can filter 35 tanks, right? Where a canister filter is only filtering 1. So it is a little bit of an investment up front, but they just go. I mean, I've never, ever, ever had a problem with any of those pumps. They just keep running. And like I said, they're quiet. The pumps themselves are mostly maintenance free. Every once in a while, there's like a little, like a filter pad that you can, like an air filter pad that you can take off and just make sure it's not dirty. For us, the thing almost never gets dirty anyway. So yeah, it can be a very, very economical way to go. So that's kind of cool. Hold on a second here. Beyond the Fishbowl, thank you so much for the super chat. I appreciate it. Angelfish was bullied by other angels, put him in a QT. Now he hasn't eaten for almost a month. No outward symptoms except lethargy. What should I do? A month is a long time. So if a fish is not eating for a month, so with an angelfish, here's what I would do. I would give him what I would call the irresistible food, and that is frozen bloodworms. If the angelfish is not eating bloodworms, there's something wrong, right? And it's got nothing to do with he was bullied a month ago and he's still having nightmares or anything like that. Fish they're dumb. They got small brains. They don't remember a whole lot. Usually after a couple weeks, they've forgotten any trauma that has happened to them. So if that's the case and it's been a month, I would look at the strong possibility that there's some type of maybe internal parasite. For us, our 2 go-to meds are Paracleanse and Expel P. Generally speaking, the fish that we've had that have had issues, one of them, I never remember which one is which, but one of them has metronidazole, I believe, and the other one is levamisole. But the Expel P and the Paracleanse, that's the brand name of the Fritz medications that we use. So that generally works. But yeah, a month is a long time. So maybe try feeding the fish frozen bloodworms just to make sure it's not your food. And if he won't eat that, the fish won't eat that, I would start probably hitting it with some meds, because it's surprising. Fish can go a long, long time without eating. I think a lot of people worry, like, hey, I'm going to be away for the weekend. What's going to happen to my fish? Nothing. They'll be hungry when you get back. Unless you've got really aggressive fish that are like, I'm getting hangry, and now because of that, I'm going to start chasing smaller fish around or something like that. But for the most part, they can go a long time. Unless it says my clown loaches make a cameo appearance every third water change. That was one thing where, a lot of people talk about fish that hide. When we redid this, I had the clown loaches in a 150, and then I put them in the 125, and the larger ones hid for a very long time. And now a lot of people were making comments a couple videos ago like, oh my gosh, your clown loaches are crazy. Yeah, because they've forgotten that there was a devastating thing that had happened. They got caught by a net, and now they're out all the time around feeding time. So it's nice that they're back because they're so personable. And you like them too when they come out because they're the goofy guys.
They are so goofy.
I was thinking about this the other day. We always talk about how the Raphael cat is my oldest fish. It's our oldest fish in the fish room, going on 16 years old. I can't even believe that. That fish is almost as old as our youngest son. Like, they're right around the same age.
I mean, he's older than our youngest son.
No,
I mean,
he's going
almost. He's
almost as old as our youngest son.
okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So that's crazy to me.
Yeah.
But I was thinking about the other day, those two largest clown loaches are not that far behind. I don't know their exact age, but I would have to guess
Really?
they're at least 10 or 12 years old. At least.
I don't even remember when they were little.
The clown loaches, oh my gosh, they were this big. They were the little cuties, and now they're massive. Yeah, and there's 6 of them in that tank, and they're all different sizes, and one of them is gnarly looking. I don't know what's going on with this clown loach. I mean, if you saw
Poor
it, you'd be like, dude, there's something seriously wrong with that fish. It has some kind of a disease.
It's
I'm
just
like,
a misfit.
that fish has looked super unappealing for its whole life. We got it, and it wasn't, maybe not its whole life, but when we first got it, it had like spots. It had black spots all over. I mean, these are not attractive spots. These are like blotches everywhere. And it's gotten worse as time has gone on. Like, his coloration has gotten worse, but he's super active. He eats. He hangs out with everybody else. He's just as crazy. He's displeasing to the eye.
He's absolutely just fine.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah, he's fine.
Just keep telling him he's a good-looking guy. All right.
He's hard to look at. He's hard on the eyes.
He's cute. Ed says, have you seen albino black neons before?
I have seen albino neons. I don't think I've seen
Albino black neons.
not black neons, no.
My guess is they're like albino, except maybe their fins are kind of black. They sound cool.
They do. The black neons have a different shape than the rest of the neons too.
They do.
So,
They're
that
larger
would be
and
pretty
hardy.
cool. But I've seen regular albino neons, and that is really cool. Zen, I couldn't agree with you more. Gemco needs a new website designer, though. Yeah,
Is it bad?
Gemco's website.
Is it as bad as ours?
Ours is at least functional.
Ours.
Poor Gemco. I mean, I think that they put something out there on the website, probably the Earthlink days or something like that, right? Microsoft DOS or whatever.
Like dial-up.
And all right, we got a website that'll handle dial-up, and they haven't changed it since. However, and you cannot order online for them. Like, you cannot just go onto their website and place an order and have it delivered. You have to call. The good thing is the lady who answers the phone is she's friendliest human being, and she's always the same person who has answered that phone for as long as I've been calling them, for 15 years, and always just the most pleasant human being on earth.
And she's like super, super, super knowledgeable.
Very.
Right.
And so for those of you who have questions about, hey, I'm building a fish room, I've got these tanks, what do you recommend? They're not going to try to upsell you. They're going to ask you all kinds of questions for good reasons, and then they're going to give you exactly what's going to work. So pretty cool. Thank you, Aqua, because that's the fish we were trying to talk about, snowball pleco. That was Spots provolone.
Oh.
Thank you, because you just said you want a dwarf snowball pleco.
They have dwarf. I see this mini snowball pleco.
So the snowball pleco is what we had. That was Spots provolone. He was a great fish, but yeah, he did. When we moved him to the other side, he eventually died in the other 75 gallon. But that was the only besides him and that one blue phantom pleco, it's the only like higher end pleco that we've had that would actually come out. And like you'd see them all the time, especially around feeding time.
They seriously max out at like 3 inches?
I don't know anything about like a dwarf one. I didn't know there was a dwarf one.
It's a mini snowball pleco. I want that.
Well, I'm sure it's really cheap and
I'm
very
sure.
affordable.
I'm sure.
Speaking of albino fish, Ed, the one that, and you all can look it up, that I want very, very bad. So, I mean, the albino heckelei is an awesome fish. We bring those in from time to time. We've had nice sized ones in the fish room in the past. And I didn't know these existed up until a few months ago. Shame on me. The albino Geophagus tapajos. Insanely expensive right now. Nearly impossible to find.
Really?
Albino Geophagus tapajos. For those of you who know what the albino heckelei look like,
pretty similar.
I would say that the albino Geophagus tapajos looks even better when I saw it. Has a lot more pink. It was very, very cool. So if you want to see an awesome fish, look those bad boys up. But yeah, good luck trying to find them. And if you do, I'm sure they're going to be rather shocking in terms of their cost.
Mandarin Gobi wants to know how many mystery snails can you put in a 5 or 10 gallon? Will it make the bio load skyrocket?
All right, so that's 2 great questions. 5 gallon, I might go a couple. 10 gallon, 2 or 3. So this question about bio load, I hear this a lot. Hear me now and believe me later, everybody. I hear this about mystery snails. I hear this about bristlenose plecos. And the argument with those are always like, yeah, they're no good because they poop so much. My counter argument is that is true. They produce a lot of waste because they eat a lot. And so here's my question. All right, we have to imagine this as an entire living being, whether it's a mystery snail or a bristlenose pleco. They're eating algae. Okay, so they're scavenging. Your tank is a mess. You've got brown diatom algae everywhere. You've got green algae issue that you can't get under control, but they start munching on all this stuff. Think about what's actually happening. Let's say, I'm just going to throw numbers they're not actually numbers, but let's just say they ate 100 units of algae. Okay, let's keep this really simple. They eat 100 units of algae. They are going to probably use 70 units to build their bodies, right? To build new cells, to grow in size. And then they're going to expel 30 units as waste. When you look at the big picture, you came out way ahead. Instead of you having to deal with 100 units of algae, they basically took that algae and converted, I don't know the exact percentage, but let's just say it's 30% of it, to a waste product that you now have to remove from your aquarium. For you personally, what is easier to deal with? Gravel vacuuming, if you've got gravel once in a while, taking a little siphon, sucking up the poop, or scraping all that stuff off your rocks, your wood, and your glass. So that's why I always say that the idea that the mystery snails and bristlenose, they produce a lot of waste and therefore are not good inhabitants of your aquarium, that doesn't make a lot of sense to me if they are doing those other things in your aquarium. Now, if they're just eating like crazy fish because you're just feeding them all kinds of sinking pellets and all that stuff and just producing a lot of waste, well, I get that. That's a more solid argument. It says, I picked up a striped Raphael cat yesterday. Been thinking about it since I saw yours a couple years ago. Almost missed it. It was hiding under a large common pleco. Yeah, they're cool. Ours was so small. It was literally like this big when we got it. And it was so tiny. I don't know if you remember, but we had this little fake gray castle thing in the 150, and it would swim inside of a hole that was very tiny, and it would come out and it would eat real fast and go right back in. And over time, these fish, they're not aggressive in any way, shape, or form. And unlike other medium, almost larger catfish, their mouth is really quite small. So they don't go out of their way to eat other fish. So they get big. They get rather large-bellied, if you will. They get chubby. And they generally are fairly lazy, but ours is always out. And he's been in with all kinds of African cichlids. He's in there with Vieja right now, not shy at all. Doesn't hide, comes out when it's time to eat. The one thing you have to be careful about, for those of you who ever keep a Raphael cat, is they have been known to overeat. So especially if you accidentally throw a whole bunch of, and they're vacuums.
Yes.
When they start eating, they are literally like, they just suck the food up. It's like, shoo, gone, all the pellets. I have heard of people who have like accidentally spilled too much food in their aquarium. The Raphael cat eats it all, bloats and dies.
Yeah.
So ours used to do this really weird thing. It doesn't do it as much anymore, but it would spend a certain part of the year eating. And I mean, it would get very chubby. And then it would just lay by the log in the 150 and never come out. And I mean, you would see it, but it wouldn't go eat. It would do this for months on end. And at first I'm like, oh, great, he's going to die. And then he did that once, and then he did it again, and he did it again. And so for him, I think it was a seasonal thing where he would really get himself kind of chunky, and then he'd be like, all right, I'm good for a while, and then he would just stop eating. But I haven't seen him do that as much as he used to.
Really?
Yeah. Kind of crazy.
Doing his hibernating. Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yeah. It was almost, it's exactly it. It was almost like he was kind of
underwater
sort of hibernating. Yeah. Oh boy, this is a good one, Sky. If you had to create a fish wish list right now, what fish would be at the top for each of you?
Anablub.
Yeah.
Oh,
Unfortunately,
wow, so
those are brackish waters. So
stop reminding me.
Yep. So that's out. For me, I think it would be the albino Geophagus topos. That's the one I'm really looking for right now. I'm like really keeping an eye out for those. Mm-hmm. And I would like to find the Nanochromis splendens. We've got the transvestitis, but the splendens are really, really pretty too. So that's a really small fish, the albino Geophagus topos. Like I said, I don't breed a lot of fish anymore except for this, the multi-shell dwellers, maybe some bristlenose plecos, the blue dream shrimp. That's about it. That would be the one fish where I would at least attempt to start breeding them again. Because I used to breed the regular Geophagus topos all the time. That would be one that I would set a tank aside for. And that's, for us in our fish room, that's a big deal right now. If we're putting aside a tank just to have fish on that side of the fish room just to breed or to enjoy, that's saying something about that fish. Tony B says shell dwellers having a hard time finding them. I'm surprised. So I guess it depends on where you live. I did that video when we talked about fish to breed, fish not to breed in 2025. And one of them that I often talk about, I don't think I mentioned it in that video, but in our area, the shell dwellers, they can go very cheap because everybody's got the same thing going on. That is, love the shell dwellers, get a group, they breed like crazy, now what? And so in the Chicagoland area, the now what is to try to sell them at swaps or literally give them away to fish stores. I have seen the prices of those come down so dramatically, at least for the multis and maybe the Simless, maybe not as much for the gold ocellatus, but that's one where if you can't find them in your area, check out places like Aquabid and maybe Facebook Marketplace, see if people are selling Aquabid especially, because there are certain regions where they're like everywhere and they're harder to get rid of.
Sound Pitch Black wants to know if there's going to be a live stream next week.
Oh, thank you for reminding. Absolutely, there will be. So next week, I already talked to John and Lisa. They're going to be streaming. We're going to do this. It's going to be awesome.
Party time.
It's going to be a Thanksgiving evening party time. And what we're going to do, thanks to Northfin, we partner with Northfin. We feed. This is all we feed. They sent us some stuff. And the minute they did, I was like, okay, we're all going to be eating, right? We're all going to be eating well on Thanksgiving. Then we're going to come in here. We're going to sit there. We're going to have a live stream. We're like, all right, let's digest food. I think it's only fair that we have a Thanksgiving Northfin fish food extravaganza giveaway. And it's not going to just be one winner.
Sweet.
There's going to be multiple winners of the Northfin food. And they didn't just send the little sample packs. No. They sent like the full,
they're the best,
like 250 gram packs and the Bug Pros and everything. So I was like, wow, yeah, they hooked us up, which means they hooked you up. And that's what we're going to do. So next Thursday is going to be a Northfin fish food giveaway extravaganza for sure. Yeah.
Hi, Jazzy Bell Pink. Welcome.
What's up?
Multis are, Mike says, multis are $18 a piece in Northern California.
Yeah, see, and that's one of those times where looking online is a very good idea because I got to imagine they would be less. Like I said, around here, if people are selling multis, they're $3-4 because there's so many people who have them. So it's just, again, it's region specific all the time.
Mandarin Gobi asks, what quarry can you keep in a 10-gallon with a betta?
I like the pygmy. Yeah, the pygmy cory cat. I think
fun.
you put a half a dozen in there. That would be a really good option. A lot of the standard cory or habrosus, half a dozen habrosus cories would work as well. But
super cute too.
Yeah, I'm not as fan in the 10-gallon of putting like the full size, like the stir-by, or the pandas are probably the ones that would stay the smallest out of those, like the more standard cory cats. But habrosus or pygmy would be a really good one because you could put a half dozen in there and get a nice group and it'd be really fun. Aquatics. I can't remember hearing you talk much on discus. Is it is because you not into them too much? So I did a species profile on discus. I've kept them a long time ago in the past. It's one of those things that I was very close to having one of these 125s be a discus tank. Remember, we talked about it extensively. And
I love discus.
I could still see a situation. We still have two 125s on the other side, and I am seriously considering doing something with the bottom 125 over there because right now everybody has them. If you've got a lot of tanks, it's kind of a catch-all tank, and I'm like, this is not serving a purpose here other than as a catch-all tank, and I'd like to do something with discus. So I do love them. Keep them warm, keep the water in good shape, and you're usually in pretty decent. There's actually a lot of people in the Chicagoland area that are breeding discus in water parameters that aren't all that dissimilar from our own.
Yeah.
So it's certainly keeping them in Chicago water. So it's
so
not
pretty.
as true anymore as it used to be where, oh, discus needs super soft water, they need a really low pH or they're going to die. That's not the case as much. So at some point, I could see it happening. I really do like them. Ooh, Taylor says in Canada, multis are $30. I can't even imagine paying $30 for a multi. That would just be
For
like,
one?
yeah,
Can you
forget it. You
imagine?
can keep it. Yeah. Not for $30, man. No way.
Oh, Oink wants to know, do we have a certain date that we're going to keep the merch sale on?
We're just keeping it. Yeah, so Oink, thank you for bringing that up. We did.
Thanks.
I know we mentioned this a long time ago on a live stream that we were going to do it, and then we forgot.
Yeah.
Well, we did that like a couple week ago, 2 weeks ago. We set all the shirts that we have on our website for $15 a piece. So thanks for mentioning that, Oink. Appreciate it. So if you are looking for, you've got a special someone like yourself who's really wanting to have, some fashion updates for 2025 for a Christmas present, now is the time because the website and there are limited sizes for
because
sure,
they're clearance. So we're not restocking like most of the designs. When they're gone, they're gone.
We'll probably have a couple of the core designs, and then maybe you'll add
like the chalkboard.
one or two new ones later on sometime next year.
Once we get rid of some of the older inventory, I'd like to order the chalkboards again.
Yeah,
and
it's been a
then
little while.
work on some other stuff.
Yep, because now she wants. That's really what it is. She wants room to design. She gets a little crazy sometimes. Like,
but I want other stuff.
Idea. Yep.
I want other stuff. Yeah.
So yeah, that's true.
So no date as of yet. Thanks. Point.
Yep, we're gonna leave it that way, probably till the end of the year, I would say at least.
Yeah.
Yep. So anyway, I think that now is a good time to wrap it up. Because I know a lot of you are probably getting tired. You had so much. Hopefully, you had so much fun this whole Thursday from
lots of
KG
fishy
Tropicals
fun
all the way through the end of our wonderful live stream. Do you want to say thank you to all the moderators who hang out with us? I know Oink is doing double duty. She's over there on Craft
Oink.
Ed as well. Thanks for being here. Thank you to everybody who stopped by, all the great questions and the super chats and
Glow
the new
merch.
members. And thank you, Glow merch. Yeah, we had that one time. We did have a Glow.
We did, but it wasn't.
Back.
It should have been like glorific. Like really.
I know.
Really like poking fun at the.
Yep. So anyway, thank you so much for being here. We will see you. We will be here next week with the North Fin Fish Food Giveaway Extravaganza
for Thanksgiving. Yeah.
Have a nice week, everybody. Stay warm. Bye.